Why were German pilots trained in the Soviet Union before World War II? The consequences of World War I plunged Germany and Russia into a deep crisis. In Russia, it took a bloody character, and in Germany, it manifested itself mainly in the economic sphere, although it was accompanied by localized clashes. The Treaty of Versailles limited the German armed forces. The Reichswehr was deprived of the right to have armored troops, military aviation and navy. Under these conditions, the 1922 Treaty of Rapallo between Soviet Russia and Germany became a kind of alliance of the vanquished. Cooperation between the two countries went beyond the economy, extending to the military sphere. One of the airfields of the Red Army Air Force near Lipetsk became a secret training base for German pilots. A cunning scheme was used to circumvent the prohibitions of the Treaty of Versailles. 50 Fokker D XIII fighters were allegedly purchased by Argentina from Holland. In fact, they were delivered in disassembled form by sea to Leningrad, and then by rail to Lipetsk, where German pilots were trained on them. To disguise the secret cooperation, a joint stock company called Metachem was created. In its documents, the airplanes and equipment passed as commercial cargo. German pilots and technicians arrived in the USSR, disguised as employees of private companies, in civilian clothes and with false passports. At the base in Lipetsk, the Germans wore either civilian clothes or Soviet uniforms without insignia. Officially, the base was called the 4th Aviation Detachment of the 38th Air Squadron of the Red Army Air Force, and its German personnel were simply called Friends. This cooperation was mutually beneficial. Germany, constrained by the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, was able to test aircraft and train specialists away from the watchful control of London. The Soviet Union, in turn, gained access to advanced aviation technology. The training program for fighter pilots at the Lipetsk school was intensive and effective. The course lasted 4 weeks and included mainly practical training. Training was conducted in small groups of 6 to 7 people, which provided an individual approach to each cadet. The instructors were experienced German pilots who had been through the First World War. Since its opening in 1925, the school has been constantly expanding. Initially, the staff consisted of 7 Germans and 20 Russians. By 1932, the number of staff peaked at 303, of which 43 were Germans. A special barracks was built to provide comfortable living conditions. Each officer was given a separate room, which was rare for the time. Family officers initially rented apartments in Lipetsk, but soon a 3-story apartment building was erected for them near the airfield. The building contained communal apartments, which was typical of Soviet life at that time. German specialists cared not only about professional training, but also about leisure time. They built a small wooden club in the garden, which became the center of cultural life in the community. The training program at the Lipetsk Aviation School was comprehensive and varied. In addition to training flights, the cadets mastered machine gun firing at towed cone targets, air combat tactics, night sorties, bombing, including dive bombing on wooden models, firing at ground targets, use of incendiary bombs on a barge target on the water. The school also served as a testing ground for new aviation equipment, including sights, navigation systems, radio equipment, and photographic equipment. During the school's existence, 5 German pilots died in airplane crashes. To maintain secrecy, their bodies were smuggled to Germany in instrument boxes. Officially, it was reported that these pilots died on the territory of Germany while practicing parachuting. For 8 years of work, Lipetsk Aviation School trained 120 fighter pilots and 100 reconnaissance pilots. This experience became invaluable for the revival of the German Air Force in the 1930s. During the school's existence, 20 types of experimental aircraft were tested. Some of these models were later adopted by the Luftwaffe. In the early 1930s, Germany began to gradually break the restrictions imposed on it by the London Agreement. The country's military development accelerated. More and more activities were conducted on its own territory. After Adolf Hitler came to power in the fall of 1933, openly ignoring international prohibitions, the aviation school in Lipetsk was closed. Among the graduates of the Lipetsk Aviation School, there are several outstanding personalities who became famous aces or high-ranking commanders. Hans Jeschonek rose to the rank of general and took the post of chief of the Luftwaffe General Staff. His career was tragically cut short in August 1943, when he committed suicide at the age of 44. The reason for his suicide was accusations of the inability of German fighter aviation to resist massive raids by British bombers. Kurt Student also reached the rank of general and headed the Luftwaffe's parachute airborne forces. He led the largest airborne operation to capture the island of Crete. Despite the success of the operation, heavy losses led to the fact that Hitler banned such large-scale airborne operations in the future. Friends, this is how the video turned out, and what you think about it, write in the comments.